Two women stood before the king. Both were crying, both were shouting, and both were pointing at the same baby. One woman said, "This baby is mine." The other woman shouted, "No, the baby is mine." The royal court was silent. Soldiers stood still. Advisors whispered among themselves. No one knew who was telling the truth. Both women had lived in the same house. Both had given birth to baby boys. But during the night, one baby had died. Now both women were claiming the same living child. The case came before the king of Israel. The young king sat on his throne. His name was Solomon. He listened quietly. He did not interrupt. He watched their faces. He heard every word. Finally, the king spoke. His voice was calm. "Bring me a sword." The court gasped. A soldier quickly brought a sword and stood before the king. Solomon said something shocking. "Cut the baby in half. Give half to one woman and half to the other." Everyone in the court froze. But suddenly one woman cried out, "No, please, do not kill the baby. Give the child to her. Just let him live." But the other woman said coldly, "Neither of us should have the baby. Cut him in half." The king lifted his hand. He pointed to the first woman. "Give the baby to her. She is the real mother." The courtroom exploded with amazement. How did the king know? Because Solomon understood something very important. A real mother would rather lose her child than see him die. And from that day forward, all Israel knew something about their king. Their king had wisdom from God. But Solomon did not begin life as a wise king. He began life as a child born into a complicated family. A child born into the house of King David. And his story began long before he ever sat on the throne.
Before Solomon was born, something painful had happened in the life of his father, King David. King David was the ruler of Israel. He was strong, he was brave, and he loved God. But even great men sometimes make terrible mistakes. One day, David saw a beautiful woman named Bathsheba. She was the wife of a soldier named Uriah. David took her for himself. To hide his sin, David sent Uriah into battle and arranged for him to be killed. God was not pleased. God sent the prophet Nathan to speak to David. Nathan told a story about a rich man who stole a poor man's only lamb. David became angry and said, "That man deserves to die." Nathan looked at David and said, "You are that man." David was broken inside. He cried before God. He repented with tears. He wrote words that would later become a famous prayer. "Create in me a clean heart, O God." God forgave David, but the consequences of the sin remained. The first child David had with Bathsheba died. David and Bathsheba wept deeply. But later, God gave them another son, a child who would grow up to become one of the most famous kings in history. They named him Solomon. But God also gave him another name through the prophet Nathan. God called him Jedediah. That name means beloved of the Lord. From the moment Solomon was born, God had a special plan for his life.
May our kingdoms flourish together.
Solomon grew up inside the royal palace of Jerusalem. The palace was full of activity. Soldiers moved through the halls. Servants carried food and water. Advisors spoke quietly about the kingdom. Messengers came and went with news from distant lands.
News from the east.
But Solomon was not the only child of King David. David had many wives and many sons. Some of Solomon's older brothers were already powerful men. Names like Amnon, Absalom, Adonijah. The royal family was complicated. Sometimes it was even dangerous. Solomon watched carefully as he grew up. He saw the victories of his father. He heard stories about David defeating the giant Goliath. He listened to songs David played on his harp. But he also saw pain inside the royal family.
Tamar.
One of David's sons, Amnon, committed a terrible crime against his sister Tamar.
My father.
Another son, Absalom, became angry and later rebelled against his own father.
Join them together.
War even broke out inside the kingdom. Solomon watched all of this. He learned an important lesson very early. Power without wisdom leads to destruction.
Yes, Mother. They show
And
life's
slowly,
trials.
Solomon began to develop something special. He loved learning. He listened when older men spoke. He asked questions. He watched how leaders made
How
decisions.
does one learn to
His
judge
mind
wisely?
was sharp. But no one yet knew that Solomon would one day become king, because another son of David had already made plans for the throne. His name was Adonijah.
No one will stand in my way.
As King David grew older, his body became weak. The once powerful warrior now struggled to keep warm. Servants covered him with blankets. Advisors whispered about the future of the kingdom. Who would become king when David died? One of David's sons decided he would not wait. Adonijah.
my father.
Adonijah was
It's mine.
handsome. He was proud, and he believed the throne should belong to him. One day he gathered supporters. He invited military leaders. He invited priests. He prepared a great feast. At that feast, he declared himself king. But there was something very important about that feast. He did not invite Solomon. And he did not invite the prophet Nathan. And he did not invite Bathsheba. Nathan quickly realized what was happening. If Adonijah became king, Solomon's life would be in danger. So Nathan went to Bathsheba. He said, "You must go to King David immediately. You must remind him of the promise he made." Bathsheba went into the king's chamber. She bowed before David. "My lord, did you not promise that Solomon would sit on your throne?
My lord,
Yet
did you not promise
Adonijah
that
has
Solomon
made
would sit on
himself
your
king." David's eyes opened
Yet
wide.
Adonijah has made
He
himself
realized
king.
what was happening. Immediately, he gave an order. "Call Zadok the priest.
Yes,
Call
my lord.
Nathan the prophet.
Nathan the prophet.
Place Solomon on my royal mule.
Solomon on my
Take him to
royal
the
mule.
spring of
Take him
Gihon.
to the spring of
There
Gihon.
you must anoint him king over Israel."
Go, anoint him king over Israel. This is the will of the Lord. Solomon, I anoint you king over Israel. Long live King Solomon! Forever! Long live King Solomon! I have prepared this great feast. Eat and drink. Solomon has been made king! I am
Adonijah ran to the altar of God and grabbed the
Mercy.
horns of
I
the
beg for
altar,
mercy at God's
begging
altar.
for mercy. Solomon heard about it. Instead of killing his brother, Solomon showed mercy. He said, "If Adonijah proves himself to be a good man, not a hair of his head will fall to the ground." This was the first sign of Solomon's character. He was not eager to shed blood. He wanted peace. But the greatest moment of Solomon's life had not yet happened. Soon, God himself would visit Solomon in a dream and give him an opportunity no king had ever received before. One night, Solomon traveled to a place called Gibeon. There, he offered sacrifices to God. After the sacrifices, Solomon went to sleep. During the night, something incredible happened. God appeared to Solomon in a dream. God spoke to him. "Ask for whatever you want me to give you."
I am only a little
Imagine that moment. The creator of heaven and earth speaking directly to a young king. Solomon could have asked for many things. He could have asked for wealth. He could have asked for long life. He could have asked for victory over enemies. But Solomon thought about the responsibility he carried.
entire
He was
nation.
now the king of an entire nation.
I am only a little
So
child.
Solomon answered God, I am only a little child.
I
I do not know how to carry out my duties.
I've heard
Give your
prayer.
servant a wise and
Give your
understanding heart, so I can
A
govern
wise
your
and
people
understanding heart.
and know the difference between right
So I can
and
govern
wrong.
your people and know the
God
difference
was
between right
pleased.
and wrong.
Solomon had not asked for riches. He had not asked for power.
For wealth pursuit.
He had asked for wisdom.
I will give you
So
what you
God
ask
made a
for.
promise.
I will give you a
I
wisdom
will
and
give you what
understanding.
you asked
There
for.
will never be
I
any
will
king
give you a
like you.
wise and understanding heart. There will never be
I
anyone
will
like
also give
you.
you what you did not ask.
But I will also give you what you did not
I
ask
am your
for:
servant, O Lord.
riches, honor,
And if you walk in my
and if you
ways,
walk in my
I will
ways,
give you long life.
long life. When Solomon woke up, he knew something had changed. God had given him wisdom.
Soon the entire
Soon, the entire nation would see that wisdom in action, beginning with a mysterious case. A baby
Soon the entire
two
nation
mothers,
would see that wisdom
and a
in action.
decision that would make Solomon famous throughout the world. News of the young king began spreading through Jerusalem. People were curious. Could this young man
Could this
truly
young man
lead
truly
Israel?
lead Israel?
Then one day, a strange case arrived at the palace. Two women came before the king. Both lived in the same house. Both had recently given birth to baby boys. But
He's
during
my
the
son.
night,
Give
one
him to
baby
me.
died.
No, he is mine. You lied.
Now
The dead
both
one is
women
mine.
claimed
This
the
one is
same
mine.
living child. The first
My lord,
woman
this woman
spoke.
slept on her baby
My
during the
lord,
night
this
and the
woman
baby
slept
died.
on her baby during the
While
night
I was
and the baby
sleeping,
died.
She switched
While I
our
was sleeping,
babies.
she switched our babies. When I woke up, the baby beside me
Baby
was
beside
dead.
me was dead.
But when I looked closely, I realized it was
But when I
not
looked
my
closely,
child.
I realized it was not
The
my
second
child.
woman shouted back, "No, the living child is mine."
No.
The
living
dead
is
child
mine. The
belongs
dead
to
child
her.
belongs to her.
The argument
The
continued.
child is mine.
Voices
No,
grew
she lies.
louder.
He's denying me.
Both women cried.
Justice.
Both insisted
The
they
child
were
is mine.
telling
She
the
stole
truth.
him, liar. He is
No
my son.
witnesses,
No.
no
Give
proof,
lie.
just two voices and one baby. The court waited for the king. Solomon
My
sat
king,
quietly.
This is my child.
He
She stole
listened.
it from me.
He studied their
He's
faces.
mine. Liar, give him back.
Then he gave a
Bring me
command.
sword.
Bring me a sword.
One time.
A soldier brought a sword. The
Cut the
room
living
became
child in
silent.
two.
Then
Give half to
Solomon
one
said
woman
something
and half to the other.
shocking. Cut the living child in two. Give half to one woman and half to the other. Gasps filled the room. But suddenly one woman screamed, "No, my lord! Please give her the baby!
No, my lord. Please
Just
give
do
her the
not
baby.
kill
Just
him!"
Do not kill him.
But the other woman
him.
said, "Cut him. Let
neither
neither
of
of us
us
have him." Solomon immediately spoke.
Give the baby to the first
Give the
woman.
baby to the first
She is the
woman.
real mother.
She is the real mother.
Oh, wise King
The
Solomon.
entire court was
Your
amazed.
judgment is divine.
The news
By
spread
God's
across
wisdom,
Israel.
We must
People
invoke
said,
the wisdom of
"The
Solomon
wisdom
for
of
this
God is in the
Indeed,
king."
His legacy demands fair and
From
discerning
that day
justice.
forward,
My
the
son,
reputation of
Your
Solomon
wisdom is a
grew.
gift from God.
It is by his grace, Mother.
People trusted his judgment.
God chose
They
Solomon as
believed
king of
God had
Israel,
truly
granting him
given him wisdom.
judgment.
But Solomon's wisdom did not stop with court decisions. It reached into many parts of life. Solomon loved knowledge. He studied the world around him. He
I came
studied
to him
nature.
without a beard on
He
my
studied
face.
people.
I studied
He
the
studied
world
God's
around me.
laws. The Bible says Solomon spoke 3,000 proverbs, and he wrote over
I have
1,000
spoken
songs.
3,000 proverbs.
People came
Rulers
from far
distant
places
lands
just to hear
the
him
wisdom God has
speak.
given me. I have spoken of
Solomon
trees,
taught
cedar,
about
Lebanon,
many
and Hesed
things.
wall.
He
Leaders
spoke
from afar
about
turning to
trees,
hear these words.
from the tall cedar trees of Lebanon to the small plants growing in cracks of stone. He spoke about animals, about birds flying in the sky, about fish swimming
world
in the
operates
sea.
cycles. Plant with
He
care,
understood
shall
how the
prosper.
world
This
worked,
is the simple truth.
and he explained it in simple wisdom. Some of his sayings became famous proverbs, words people would remember for generations. For example, Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Trust in the Lord with all your heart.
Do not lean on your own understanding. Another saying was, a
not
gentle
lean on your
answer
own
turns
understanding.
away anger, but harsh words stir
Gentle
up
answer
rage.
till we anger.
These
harsh
simple
words stir up
words
rage.
helped people live better lives. Kings from other nations heard about Solomon. They wanted to meet him.
Solomon's wealth and
They
wisdom
wanted
spreads
to
far.
hear
We
his
must meet him.
wisdom.
How can we arrange it? To hear his wisdom.
But Solomon was not only known for wisdom, he was also about to begin one of the greatest building projects in history. A building his father David had dreamed about for years.
Good, my son.
A place where the people of Israel could worship God. The temple of the Lord. Before David died, he had a dream. David wanted to build a temple for God, but God told David that he would not be the one to build it. God said his son would build it instead.
of you.
That son was Solomon.
I need to fulfill the
David
dream
had
of my
already
late father
gathered
David.
many materials:
I will build a temple
gold,
for God.
silver, wood, stone. David had also made peace with neighboring nations.
Peace with our neighbors.
So when Solomon
Let this
became
counsel affirm.
king,
We affirm
the
it.
time had
We shall
come.
endure.
He would build the temple, but he would need help. One of the most important helpers came from a neighboring kingdom. His name was King Hiram of Tyre. Solomon asked Hiram for help.
King Hiram,
Lebanon had famous
welcome to
cedar
my
trees.
palace.
These trees
go
were
inside.
tall, strong, and
King Hiram, I
beautiful.
seek your aid to build a
Perfect
temple
for
the
building the
Lord.
temple.
Solomon, my friend,
King
I
Hiram
will gladly
agreed.
provide the resources.
His workers cut down cedar trees. They floated the wood across the sea. Then they transported it to Jerusalem. Solomon organized thousands of workers. The project began,
Onward! These cedars for
and it would
Jerusalem!
become one of the most magnificent buildings the world had ever seen. The construction began in the 4th year of Solomon's reign. Thousands of workers cut stones from the mountains. These stones were prepared carefully, so carefully
Cut the stones
that
through.
no
flaw in
hammer
the
or
temple's
tool was
foundation.
heard at the
Bear
temple
cedars
site.
high, the walls must rise.
Everything was prepared before it arrived. Slowly, the structure rose. The temple walls were covered with cedar wood. Then they were covered with pure gold. Gold shined everywhere. The inside of the temple glowed with beauty. 2 giant angel figures called cherubim stood inside the most holy place. Their wings stretched across the room. The Ark of the Covenant would be placed there. The Ark represented the presence of God. Outside the temple stood huge bronze pillars. One was named Jachin, the other was named Boaz. There were large bronze basins for washing, and a giant bronze pool called the sea. Everything was made with great care. The temple took 7 years to complete. Finally, the day came. The temple was finished. But the most important moment was still coming. The moment when the presence of God would fill the temple. We have come to the end of this story. If you like this story, comment,
Behold,
continue,
the house of the
subscribe
Lord
to this
is
channel,
established.
like video, share, and God bless you for watching.